Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. On this video, I'll be showing you how I'm going to sand down that Harley tank, which I prepped for primer and applied the primer in a previous video. In this one, I'll be sanding it down and applying Metal Flake. Now, there's a couple of different ways that you can apply Metal Flake to your part that you're painting, and in this case, I'll be Metal Flaking that Harley tank. So I'll be running through the prep and the different ways that you can mix and apply the Metal Flake. With that said, guys, let's jump into today's video right now. Alright guys, so here we have some pure black in aerosol. I'm only applying this over the tank, over the primed areas, simply because I like to see what's been sanded and what hasn't while I'm sanding. Now, in regards to the grits, you can sand this with an orbital sander or by hand with water, and the grits range from anything from 400 grit like I've got here all the way up to 800 grit. I wouldn't go anything coarser than 400 for applying base coat, but yeah, that's pretty much it. So I'll pretty much sand this whole part down with the orbital sander, and all the tight little corners I'll sand by hand. Once it's all sanded, I'll use this wax and grease remover. It's perfect for all those smaller jobs, so there's no need to be buying larger tins of the wax and grease remover. Alright guys, you've all heard the term, it's all in the prep work. That's exactly what I'm doing here. I gave this stand a quick blow off, and I'm now putting a fresh sheet of paper over the top. I'm going to mask it down so it doesn't move and fill up any smaller holes which may be visible. I'm then going to throw the tank on, make sure that it is stable, that it's not going to fall off during the painting process, and that's pretty much it. Alright, now that the stand's all been prepped up, the part's all prepped up, it's time to give this tank its final wax and grease remove. I will be using those blue wipes. I find they do dry that wax and grease remover, and we end up getting a really clean part. That's pretty much it regarding the prep for paint. Let's start talking about how we're going to mix up this Metal Flake. Alright guys, let's talk about the application of Metal Flake. Now, there's probably 3 or 4 main ways that you can apply Metal Flake on your project. Now, for this video, I'll be applying it in what they call a FX Intercoat. And what that is basically it's like a see-through, or it's a clear base coat, so it has no color in it. So what you do is you mix that 1-to-1 with a base coat reducer. You then add the Metal Flake inside that FX Intercoat, and you then apply it on the panel. So you're pretty much making your own base coat, but instead of it being a pigment, it's actually Metal Flake. And what you'll find is that you can apply multiple coats of that Metal Flake in that Intercoat, and you're not going to have the worry of getting solvent boil or solvent entrapment when doing so. So with DNA paints, they actually have 2 FX Intercoats available. They have a high definition FX Intercoat, and what that is compared with the standard FX Intercoat is actually, if you can imagine you've got Metal Flake in a normal FX Intercoat. The label looks like this. So it's just like a normal FX Intercoat. Now, what will happen when you've got a solid particle like Metal Flake in that FX Intercoat, when the gun has been sat on the bench or on a gun rack in the booth, over time the Metal Flake will actually settle down to the bottom and will actually block up your spray gun. So when painting Metal Flake, what a lot of people do is they swirl the gun around always, like between coats, so it doesn't settle and block their gun up. That's where the other FX Intercoat comes in. So I've actually got one here. So high definition FX Intercoat. So what this will do is actually prevent that Metal Flake from settling in your spray gun. So you can leave your gun, you can go out, have a coffee, have a beer, do whatever, come back in, apply your next coat, and know that it's not going to settle in your spray gun. So that's what we're going to be using in this video, guys, is the high definition Intercoat. Now, when would you use I could talk about this for ages. So when would you use one over like the other? So the Intercoat, FX Intercoat, is really good for, say, pearls, micro pearls and things like that, where it takes a lot longer for those particles to settle. We're using Metal Flake in the high definition Intercoat. it will take longer and will actually prevent that from actually settling to the bottom. So that's when you would use it. You would use the high definition for flake and the FX inner coat for pearls and micro pearls and stuff like that. So that's not the only way that you can apply metal flake. Now the other couple of ways is one with a flake gun. In my experience with flake guns, you can go through a hell of a lot of metal flake when using one. So it's really designed for literally smothering something in metal flake. So another way, a really great way, is by using the Dino Paints aerosol metal flake. This stuff lays down so damn good. I quite like it. If it wasn't for me wanting to do it in an FX inner coat, I would be using it in the aerosol. And I'm a spray painter. I love using spray guns, so that's what I'm going to do in this video. However, there's another way that you can apply metal flake, and that's by putting the metal flake into your first coat of clear. Now, I used to do that a lot when I was younger, and I never used to have that much issue with it, but as I've progressed through my career, I've learned about the possible negative things that can happen from that. And by negative things, I'm talking about solvent entrapment and solvent boil. And what they are is when you've applied multiple coats on top of each other of like clear coat, trying to get the look that you're going for with that metal flake, what can happen is getting solvent boil and solvent entrapment. They basically mean the same thing. So to give you a quick, I guess, explanation of what that is, imagine you've laid down your first coat of clear. You probably haven't waited probably 15 to 20 minutes, maybe 25 minutes for it to really flash off. You've waited like 5 minutes. You've realized that that coat with the metal flake in it hasn't given you the look that you're after, so you decide to put a second coat on top. It still hasn't got the look that you've wanted, so you put a third one on, right? Let's say that first coat, you let it sit for about 5 minutes. You didn't wait a longer period. You've then gone and put a second coat on top. What's actually happening is the first coat is trying to dry. It's basically emitting all the solvents out of the clear coat into the atmosphere so it can dry. You've gone and covered that with a second coat of clear. What that is actually done now is actually stopped the first coat from fully drying. And over time, what will actually happen is when the solvents from that first coat are trying to come out and dry, it actually comes through the second coat of clear and it pops. Now that happens millions of times over a panel, and I mean millions.
$1 million.
And when it happens really bad, what will actually happen is because of the pop of the solvents coming out, it actually creates basically microscopic little holes all over the panel, all over your second coat of clear. And then evidently what that will look like is basically you'll first of all lose a hell of a lot of gloss in your clear coat. It will look like you've used like a satin or semi-gloss kind of clear, because it will dull off quite a fair bit. Now the only real way to fix it is by sanding it all down and clearing it or flow coating it. That's the only way to fix it. So when metal flaking, I strongly don't recommend using a clear coat with your metal flake. I mean, look, by all means, do it, and I've done it many times over the years, but I've always waited that long period of time between coats. But for this video, because we're using the high definition inner coat, we can apply coat after coat to get the look that we want and leave it for like 5 or 10 minutes between coats, if that. It's really, really good. It saves a lot of time, and then you can apply your 2 coats of clear on over the top of the flake in the FX inner coat or the high definition, and you'll get full coverage of that metal flake. You'll get a flatter finish. It's got a lot of positive, I guess, outcomes by doing it that way. So with that said, guys, I'll stop rambling on. As I said, I can talk about this stuff for ages. So what we're going to do, guys, we'll get some cups out. So we've got one of these Dino Paints cups. These are really great. They've got the meals, they've got the 1-to-1 on them. Very handy for mixing up the high definition intercoat. So we'll move the camera down onto the paint bench and let's mix some up. All right guys, so when mixing FX intercoats or the high definition intercoat, 1-to-1 with a base coat reducer, it's really easy. I'll swing that around so you guys can see the mils here, so you can see me mixing it. Now I reckon I'll go around that probably 200, and then I'll put obviously 200 of the base coat reducer. That will give me 400 mil, and that is pretty much ready to spray once we give it a mix. Now I will be using the shimmering silver Metal Flake. Hopefully that's in camera. Yes, it is. So 100 micron. So that's this, when my thumb is here, 100 micron. The 100 cc, what that basically means is that's how much flake is in this container. So yeah, don't get mixed up with the different, I guess, the terms on it. Now, usually in Metal Flake, you have a little spoon and you would spoon out how much flake you want inside the FX intercoat. Because there's not much in this one, I'm just gonna wing it and pour the whole lot in. And we're gonna give that a stir up. Now, being that this is a 100 micron Metal Flake, you can use a 1.2 or a 1.3 mil spray gun. So just use a conventional HTE spray gun. So I'll grab the camera and I'll show you what this looks like. We'll grab the light. So that's gonna sparkle. We'll sit that up there like that. So you can see that glistening, and that's what I love about Metal Flake. It's really great stuff. So that's pretty much ready to spray. We'll just keep stirring that up, and we'll go throw it in the spray gun. Obviously, because of the size of the Metal Flake, you can't run it through 190 micron filter. So try and keep your area that you're mixing the Metal Flake nice and clean, because we're going to pour this straight in the spray gun and start spraying. Now, another thing to keep in mind is choosing the right colored ground coat for the Metal Flake. Now I'm going to be using black as the ground coat, and that will really darken everything up. It'll kind of give a dark appearance once the Metal Flake has been applied, but that's what I'm going for. I'm going for that dark like contrast between the base and the Metal Flake. So in regarding that, the black base coat is mixed at 60-40 with a base coat reducer, and I'll be using the DNA Paints Pure Black. So let's get into it. Alrighty, just thought I'd show you this. So I've gone and put a couple of coats of black down on that tank. If you have a look at this Metal Flake, see how it hasn't all settled down to the bottom like it would have if it was in the FX intercoat. Because this is the high definition intercoat, it's still all on the surface. Like, that's pretty good stuff. I quite like it. Alright guys, so I've laid down my 3 coats of the 100 micron shimmering metal flake over the top of the black ground coat. Now, I'm happy with the coverage. It's got enough on there and I managed to do it in 3 coats. I didn't measure out that metal flake, I just winged it because I wanted to empty that tub of flake. So yeah, it kind of kills 2 birds with 1 stone. Now I applied 3 coats and I'm happy. It's got the good contrast between the 2 colors. It's time now to give it a blow off, remove any loose particles of flake off that surface so we can start laying down my clear coat. Now if you guys are an OG subscriber of mine, you guys know that I love my custom clear. Well, today's the day that I show you that I don't only use the custom, I also use the diamond clear. In my opinion, the diamond for me has its purpose, and for that purpose I'm going to be using it to bury the metal flake because it's a high solid like clear coat compared with the medium solid custom clear. So with that said guys, just a quick rundown on the diamond. It's mixed 2 to 1 up to 20% of reducer. Now, because I want a lot of build, I'll be only putting in 10% of an FX reducer. With that said guys, let's quickly mix it up. Our flake's all flashed off, it's ready to be cleared. All we got to do is blow it off and apply. I'll be applying 3 coats of the custom clear because I will be sanding that clear coat down. I want it dead flat so I can start doing some masking and some effects on this tank in a next upcoming video. Let's get into it. Alrighty, buckaroonies. So we'll just move everything away. We'll turn that around to 2 so you guys can see what we're doing. So we've got 2, which way? This way, 2 to 1. And then obviously we've got the other lines on the cup as well. These little black ones here, they're like 10, 15 and 20% of reducer. So we'll be going to like the top of the bottom black line, so that's 10%. So we'll throw that in. Oh, you can tell I don't use this very often. It's a bit tight to get that off. So we'll probably go probably to the 2 again, like we did on the FX of the high definition inner coat. That's about 2. Throw the lid on. Hardener goes next, medium. Take that to the next 2. Hope you guys can see that. Oh, barely. There we go. Sorry about that, guys. And then FX reducer. So as I said, up to the bottom. There you go, that's good enough. Beauty. So that's 2 to 1 with 10% of reducer. We'll give that a stir up. Give that a stir up. And we're ready to rock and roll. Alright guys, well there's our 2 coats of diamond clear over the top of that metal flake. It's all looking pretty good. I've got 1 more coat of clear to go, which I'll show you in just a moment. But yeah, hope you've all learned something on this one. I've pretty much wrapped everything up that I could talk about in this video. I mean, I can talk about paint like you wouldn't believe, trust me. But anyway, I'm going to leave the video there. I'll show the last coat being applied and some hero shots of it all painted. You guys will take it easy. If you've enjoyed this one and learned something, hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't already. And I'll see you guys on my next video. Cheers.